Yes, just a touch from the Lord Jesus Christ is enough to make it all right.
Don't fuss and don't fight, and no more strife.
Because a lot of our black men don't understand that they are great. And so I wanted to say, okay, let's get Marcus Garvey's input on what was going on. It says thousands of blacks were immigrating to Harlem from the West Indies at the same time as blacks from the South. Among them was a chunky black Jamaican named Marcus Garvey. 2 years earlier, and so no matter how you look, it don't matter how you form, it don't matter how you build, you can still be a voice. Amen? 2 years earlier in his native land, he had started the Universal Negro Improvement Association. On the sidewalks, on the sidewalks of New York, his talk about redeeming the race made little impression at first. Garvey wandered west from Harlem, touring 38 states to see how blacks lived in America. Everywhere he found tens of thousands of migrants from the South jammed into rickety tenements. Jim crowed on their jobs and in their neighborhoods, living in the shadow of the big white world and living on its cast-offs. For a few years, he made little progress in winning the black masses with his message, pride in race. But neither had any other organization made headway with the black people. The National Urban League and the NAACP had paid more attention to middle class than working class blacks and depended upon better off whites and blacks for support. But by 1919, the year in which race riots erupted in a deadly rash over the face of America, blacks was ready for a program that pointed a way out of the prison of the ghetto. Marcus Garvey had the gifts to dramatize his dream of a black world ruled by black men. The blacks should be proud of their past, he said, proud of the great empires built by black people in African glorious age, proud of their blackness. Garvey praised everything black. The color was a sign of strength and beauty. He said, not a badge of inferiority. In his speeches and his newspaper, The Negro World, he declared the white man's prejudice against blacks was so strong, it was foolish to believe his sermons on justice and democracy would ever mean anything in practice. This America was a white man's country, he said, and no place for blacks. The only hope for blacks was to build an independent nation in Africa, their ancestral homeland. Garvey's black nationalist appeal showed amazing success by 1919. The UNIA grew swiftly. Its branches spread into most of the large centers of black population. Garvey gave his followers parades and pageants, uniforms and titles, conventions and conferences. I don't know about y'all, but if you get in your mind and you remember how blacks was back then, I'm quite sure that made them feel like they was a part of something. See, that's all blacks wanted to do, was just feel like they was a part of something. They have separated us so much and just made us feel like we were worthless. And here go this black voice and this little chunky black man from Jamaica letting them know who they were, giving parades for them, pageant, putting uniforms on them, actually giving them titles besides slave and dog and nigger and all them titles, gave them great titles, conventions and conferences. They said by the mid-20s, he had about 1 million followers. They said this man organized stores, he organized factories, he organized cooperatives, and a Black Star steamship line. Don't tell me what we can't do. It was this last venture that ended his sensational rise. It showed a heavy financial loss, and Garvey was tried for fraud. Found guilty, he was sent to prison in 1925. 2 years later, he was pardoned, but he was deported as an alien. Let's get rid of him. He lived the rest of his life in obscurity. See, Garvey never reached Africa, nor did he ever land any of his followers on that shore. But that was no measure of Garveyism meaning. It was the first real mass movement among black Americans in the country's history. Blacks showed they did not want to leave the United States any more than had earlier generations, no matter how angry and bitter they were. What Garvey did was to strengthen their self-respect and pride, to open out the world to them, to show the promise of liberation which the African nations would achieve a generation or two later. From Garvey's writings of the early 1920s come this statement of his ideas and belief. It comes to the individual, it comes to the race and the nation, once in a lifetime to decide upon the course to be pursued as a career. It lets me know right there that we're all responsible to make a decision. The hour has now struck for the individual Negro as well as the entire race to decide the course that will pursue in the interest of our own liberty. We who make up the Universal Negro Improvement Association have decided that we shall go forward, we shall go upward, and we shall go onward toward the great goal of human liberty. We have determined among ourselves that all barriers placed in the way of our progress, listen to this, y'all, must be removed. It must be cleared away, for we desire to see the light of a brighter day. Man, if blacks can think like that today. The Universal Negro Improvement Association for 5 years has been proclaiming to the world the readiness of the Negro to carve out a pathway for himself in the course of life. We are organized for the absolute purpose of bettering, come on, our condition. Bettering our industrially, bettering our commercially, bettering our socially, religiously, and politically. We are organized not to hate other men, but to lift ourselves and to demand respect of all humanity. We have a program that we believe to be righteous. We believe it to be just. And we have made up our minds to lay down ourselves on the altar of sacrifice for the realization of this great hope of ours, based upon the foundation of righteousness. We declare to the world that Africa must be free, that the entire Negro race must be emancipated from industrial bondage, peonage, and serfdom. We make no compromise. We make no apology in this, our declaration. We do not desire to create offense on the part of the other races, but we are determined that we shall be heard, that we shall be given the rights to which we are entitled. Come on now. Men of the Negro race, let me say to you that a greater future is in store for us. We have no cause to lose hope, to become faint-hearted. We must realize that upon ourselves depend our destiny, our future. We must carve out that future, that destiny, and we who make up the Universal Negro Improvement Association have pledged ourselves that nothing in the world shall stand in our way. Nothing in the world shall discourage us, but opposition shall make us work harder, shall bring us closer together, so that as one man, the millions of us will march on toward the goal that we have set for ourselves. The new Negro shall not be deceived. The new Negro refuses to take advice from anyone who has not felt with him and suffered with him. We have suffered for 300 years. Therefore, we feel that the time has come when only those who have suffered with us can interpret our feelings and our spirit. It takes a slave to interpret the feelings of a slave. It takes an unfortunate man to interpret the spirit of his unfortunate brother. And so it takes the suffering Negro to interpret the spirit of his comrade. There's many a leader of our race who tells us that everything is well and that all things will work out themselves and that a better day is coming. Yes, all of us know that a better day is coming. We all know that one day we will go home to paradise. But whilst we are hoping by our Christian virtues to have an entry into paradise, we also realize that we are living on earth and that the things that are practiced in paradise are not practiced here. You have to treat this world as the world treats you. We are living in a temporal, material age, an age of activity, an age of racial, national selfishness. What else can you expect but to give back to the world what the world gives to you? And we are calling upon the 400 million Negroes of the world to take a decided stand, to determine stand that we shall occupy a firm position. That position shall be an emancipated race and a free nation of our own. Here we are in 2019, and we still fighting for what this brother stood up for. We are determined that we should have a free country. We are determined that we should have a flag. We are determined that we should have a government second to none in the world. When we come to consider the history of man, was not the Negro a power? Was he not great once? Yes. Honest students of history can recall the day when Egypt, Ethiopia, and Timbuktu towered in their civilizations, towered above Egypt, towered above Asia. When Earth was inhabited by a race of cannibals, a race of savages, naked men, heathen, and pagans, Africa was peopled with a race of cultured black men who were masters in art, science, and literature. Men who were cultured and refined. Men who, it was said, were like gods. Even the great poets of old sang in beautiful sonnets of the delight it afforded the gods to be in companionship with the Ethiopians. Why then should we lose hope? Black men, you were once great, you shall be great again.
Yes.
Lose not courage, lose not faith, go forward. The thing to do is to get organized. Keep separated and you will be exploited. You will be robbed. You will be killed. You know, the Bible talks about unity on one accord. You remember when they was building the Tower of Babel, they was on one accord, and on one accord, man, the things that even God said that they can do. Yeah. So he's saying, get organized and you will compel the world to respect you. If the world fails to give you consideration because you are a black man, because you are Negroes, 400 millions of you shall, through organization, shake the pillars of the universe and bring down creation, even as Samson brought down the temple upon his head and upon the heads of the Philistines. So Negroes, I say, through the Universal Negro Improvement Association, that there is much to live for. I have a vision of the future, and I see before me a picture of a redeemed Africa with her dotted cities, with her beautiful civilization, with her millions of happy children going to and fro. He said, why should I lose hope? Why should I give up and take back place in this age of progress? Remember that you are men, that God created you lords of this creation. Lift up yourselves. Men, take yourselves out of the mire and hit your hopes to the stars. Yes, rise as high as the very stars themselves. Let no man pull you down. Let no man destroy your ambition. Because man is but your companion. He's your equal. Man is your brother. He is not your Lord. And he is not your sovereign master. This was by Marcus Garvey. Showing
Just keep your head